All right, welcome to Creator Hardware, and today we're talking about what happens if you lose your data. Now, specifically, we're talking about content creators and losing their video files or their audio files. Now, a friend of mine recently contacted me. We were at an event together, and he had his RAID system on his editor's PC fail. He lost an entire project that the footage could not be easily replaced. You know, when you lose that kind of footage, you can't go back and refilm it. It's not like a talking head type video like I'm doing here. It's really hard to replace that data. So it's really important that you, have proper backups. One of the biggest things I see is hard drive failures. Now, hard drive failures on spinning disks is actually somewhat easier to recover than an SSD because it's physically written to a disk. And every company that makes hard drives usually has some sort of data recovery service that you can contact. His situation was the RAID array itself. Now, I'm not going to get in too heavily into a RAID, but basically a RAID is where you link several hard drives. And depending on how you set up the RAID, you may have some redundancy, no redundancy, etc. It's a very elaborate situation. Now, here I have a network attached storage over there. And so I've got redundant storage on everything. So that's your best bet if you have a hard drive that fails, a physical hard drive. SSDs are a different story because of the flash. It usually gets much more expensive to recover your data if you lose it. Now, these little guys, these are where it's most likely to fail. You know, they're used and abused, they're pulled in and out of cameras. One, they either physically format a card with video files on it, or it actually physically no longer works. Now, they're based on NAND flash cards just like SSDs, so they're really hard to recover data that is lost, especially data that is deleted. So one of the first things you need to understand about, data loss is trying to prevent it, and that is with the rule of three. The rule of three is you have your data in 3 places. If you have it in 3 places, it's really hard to not lose it unless something catastrophic fails or, fires or that kind of stuff. Now, the rule of 3 generally is local storage, extended storage, and then off-site storage. Now, that can be a web service or something like that. Now, I personally don't do any of that because it's expensive. And for the most part, most of my footage, if I lose it, I just have to refilm. Pain in the butt, but not really that big of a deal. But for those that have, critical needs on not losing data, you need to follow the rule of 3 as best you can. Now, I follow my version of a rule of 3. First off, when I come home from filming at my other channel, the data on these cards does not get deleted until the files are uploaded. Until they are edited and uploaded to YouTube, the memory card does not get deleted. That's number 1. I've heard formatting is bad. I've heard formatting is good. I personally do not format my cards unless I see an issue with, file degradation or something like that. Your mileage will vary depending on what expert you listen to, but I don't personally format them. I just delete the files and keep going. Makes my file system a lot easier because the files are numbered, not going back to 001 and that kind of thing. The first thing you need to do is you need to get files off of these cards and onto a hard drive. Now, depending on how you do your workflow, you may be using something like a laptop with external storage, like a Samsung SSD or a hard drive with an enclosure. That's not enough. You need to have it in physically 3 places. It sounds a pain in the butt, and it can be. I have a NAS here, so I have that advantage. So I transfer my data to a temporary file on my NAS storage, network attached storage, and So I've always got the physical copies of whatever I need to edit. After I'm done with them, I put them in a regular file on the server, but I've always got 3 places of where that data is. I have it on the actual card. Now keep in mind, I do never delete it off the card until it is uploaded to YouTube. I do not want to have the issue of, well, I deleted it and I need that file that I didn't think I would need. It's just better just to not delete it. You know, memory cards are cheap enough nowadays that you can get several. And by the way, normally what I do just a side note, is when I film with a card, when it's used, I flip it around. When I was traveling, I had 2 of these, one for, actual used cards, and then one for virgin cards, 2 separate cases, so I knew which one was which. Make sure you do not format a card with files on it, because trust me, that's bad. So always make sure you keep your cards separated so you know which ones have footage on them until you can offload them. These SSDs are relatively cheap. They transfer really fast. Keep one for backup. Put your files on it. Then put your files on the one you're going to edit on if you're doing a laptop. Now for me, my editing PC has a dedicated NVMe strictly for file footage. It's a 1 terabyte. I keep all my files on there that I'm editing. And again, I've got redundant storage, so I can always back it up from somewhere else if that drive fails. Now let's talk about hard drive storage itself. He was using a RAID inside a PC. Now this is where a lot of people, I think, screw up. Now this is a 4 terabyte compute drive. This is designed for an operating system. Now when I had my old editing PC built, they put in 2 of these 4 terabytes. They were compute drives. It's a gaming company. It was designed for, well, putting games on, not mass storage. You don't want a compute hard drive as a RAID or a deep storage type device. You want something like a NAS or enterprise drive. They're designed for heavy read and writes. A compute drive is not. It will fail faster than a NAS drive. A NAS drive is to go into a data center or a security system and read and write over and over and over and over again. Every hard drive in that server is a NAS drive. And they all work phenomenally. I've had no errors with any of them. They're Seagates. Your mileage will vary on Seagate versus Western Digital. I haven't had any problems, but my point of the matter is that if you're setting up a PC for editing and you're going to put hard drives in there for any sort of backup, get a NAS style hard drive. You can get huge capacities. Don't go too big because the failure rate goes up the higher the capacity. 6 terabytes is a sweet spot for most, price versus capacity. SSDs, while are great, do have a limited lifespan. They will eventually die. Now you'll get warnings on an SSD that it's dying. So that's something you can, kind of plan for. Rarely do they just up and die, but if they do die, that's why you need to have redundant storage. You need to have storage somewhere else other than just your PC, your laptop, your Mac, because that's when it's going to screw you. So that's why you need to follow the rule of 3. 3 places where the footage is. Again, for me, I don't feel like if, my house burned down, I'm gonna worry about video footage. So having it off-site's not so much of a concern. I really just want to make sure I have my files so I can edit them and put them out for people to watch. So I hope this video was helpful. As always, hit record, hit upload. Thanks for watching. This is Creator Hardware.